first, I'm like, okay. I mean, I would rather do it right than do it fast. And also, I know there's organizations out there that, have done this before that will, like to work with us to make sure that it's a successful operation, and I hope we can reach out to them.
Oh, absolutely. We have a lot of agencies that are reaching out and offering help. I receive emails and examples of draft policies and procedures, and so where you can just adjust them to meet our needs. I mean, I would rather come back to the superintendent and the board and say, look, we just couldn't find the right people, and we have to fill certain spots with our current agreements in one form or another to make sure we meet our legal requirements. But we're not going to rush. We're not going to put someone in a position for the sake of having someone in there. And then, of course, we have to hire people and we have to train them. And we have to make sure that they come to us with certain criteria and be men and women of integrity and all of that. And so we will get to where we need to be.
Yeah, I think we can be even more specific and more discerning on who we put in there, and the training that we give them will even be more specific, and what we want of them. I mean, that we will be their bosses. We will be able to describe what it is we want and tell them where we want to be and when. And I just think having more control over who's in there. I mean, because I surely don't want, the rent-a-cop, which some people are going into. I want to have highly trained people in here, and I think this is a way of getting it.
Absolutely.
If you look at our job description, it's written very intricately.
Yeah.
And I think that really is very helpful for that purpose. Caroline, did you have a question?
No.
Anyone else? Eric? Dr. Bowden? All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just know that you're not going to be sleeping much.
Not now. Not right now at all.
He doesn't sleep much the way it is, I'm not sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up, we have communication staffing, Scott Limpy and Tracy Beaker.
Tracy's in the middle of doing her media thing. I need to pull her away from
I started to say she's...
We've got great media partners here, that's for sure. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm excited to be here today. This is almost my 4-month anniversary, which is tomorrow.
Yay.
Have you been here that long?
Isn't it amazing?
It is. It feels like forever.
It has gone by so quickly, and I've been so fortunate because I have learned something each and every day from my teammates, from my colleagues. It's just been an extraordinary experience thus far.
For communications, you should know to put the microphone.
You bet. I thought it was on. Anyway, so thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we've done over the course of the last 4 months. Really, I've had a wonderful opportunity to sort of listen, to observe not only the communications team, but the functions of communications throughout the entire school district. And with regards to that, we've also been able to sort of take a step back and assess what our strengths are and what are our weaknesses and where do we see opportunities to really be able to grow the communications function throughout the entire district and make it, again, a really first-class communications project. So with that, I know that next month we're going to be sharing our plan with you in terms of our communications and community relations plan. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments and really having a great conversation with you guys. I'm really excited about some of the fundamental things that we're going to be focusing on that I think is really, again, going to help propel communications in the district. But before you today is the organizational chart. And hopefully come July 1st, that's what the communications team is going to look like. And if you take a look at it, you'll notice that there's a huge emphasis with regards to digital and social media. In particular, this is really going to be a strategic imperative for the district. We want to make sure that all of our messages can be reached with parents and students, our community and business partners, our volunteers, our staff as well, to be able to make sure that we can reach our messages where they are on any screen and any device. So the opportunity to really focus on social and digital media is going to be really, really important for us this next year. And that's why you've seen some of the fundamental changes with regards to the team overall. But I wanted to ask you guys if you had any questions with regards to the org chart in particular.
Eric, do you have any questions?
Thank you for the org chart, and I appreciate that. And if we get whatever departments come up here, I'd like to get the org charts too. Great, we'll make it a point for you. I also want to point out that when we went through our budget reduction exercise, that this organizational structure was contemplated. Actually, it's delivering significant savings over their current budget, about $50,000. And so this is within your budget projections for next year, but we're also asking for authority to go ahead and begin the staffing process to make sure that Tracy has the support that she needs so that she's with us.
Was Lindsay underneath communications before?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I think she does a wonderful job.
She's phenomenal. She
Lindsay
really,
does a
really is.
wonderful job. Coach Cantice is the best.
Thank you for that.
I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One of the concerns I have, of course, is our television station. And so anything that you can do to shine a light on some other things that we can use that station for. And one of the things that I mentioned to Dr. Bowden yesterday was the Florida Channel. And I know that sometimes in certain communities, the Florida Channel comes through on the Education Channel, and that would be very informative, not only for us, but for a lot of our classes, because there are many programs that talk about history and talk about things that are going on in the state of Florida. That would be, a great opportunity for some of our schools to tap into. So if we could look into that, that would be a great thing.
Absolutely. I think you're going to see over the course of this next year us sort of taking a look at our content and what content can we create original content for to help support not only the Education Channel, but obviously all of our other social and digital channels as well. And then from there, where can we license content? I think your point about educational content being things about science and history and math and things that can really help our students and our community thrive, those are super, super important. I know with the Florida Channel in particular, we have to have our satellites up and running, and that's a little bit of an expensive proposition for us right now. But we've been working with other school districts in the state of Florida and elsewhere to kind of figure out what their strategies are with regards to cable broadcast versus, again, digital and social channels, and what does that look like. So I think for this next year, we're going to see where we can find content that's affordable and content that's obviously very measurable and effective for us to be able to keep teaching on air. And then from there, be able to see what else we need to make adjustments for over the course of the next year.
And since you have experience with PBS, that would not be a bad idea either to look into some particular programming
That's
for
right.
PBS.
That's right.
Caroline?
One thing I'd like to say up front, I would not like us to lose our channel. I'm very clear on that. I would not, because I think it's important, and once you lose the channel, you never get it back. And the second thing is I do understand the need for digital communication, for social media, because I have an 18-year-old who drums it through my head every day about the need for social media. And he completely worked on my campaign, and he did a great job because he understands social media. So I know what you're talking about there, what we need. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that you're aware of it.
Thank you. It's a wonderful way to be able to inform audiences, but also be able to engage and inspire them too. And really get them to understand what the school district is all about, the work that our students do each and every day, our classrooms, our schools, and really be able to kind of use that as a showcase for the school district. So I'm really excited for the social media campaign to start.
Well, I know the younger ones use Instagram, and then the next stage up, they use not Facebook, Twitter. Twitter.
Yes.
And
Snapchat is the high
Snapchat
schoolers
is
for
not
sure.
much.
And you'll see us doing various campaigns to make sure that not only do they use those, but they use them appropriately.
That's correct. And also one of the great
I can
things.
guarantee you my grandson does.
Good. We need lots.
But what's great about social media is it does also afford us the opportunity to listen to what our community is saying, to listen to what our parents are saying. Again, opponents and proponents in terms of what we're working to achieve. So it really is a great platform to be able to do that.
Eric?
And instead of having the constant loop of those banners, is there a way, I mean, I'm just pontificating something, you can replace this with any other group, to have like Khan Academy content running during those mid-times, or Schoolhouse Rock, or things like that are actually educational
Yes.
in nature.
Old Elvis movie.
Well, I
Why
wouldn't
not?
say that, but
Yes, but absolutely, Eric. You're absolutely right. I think that, again, from a content strategy, I think the more that we can look at licensing content, especially educational content, is going to be really, really helpful. Also, one of the things that I'm really excited about is the potential to also tap into our students. Our students are phenomenally talented here, so what sort of content can we work with them to create on our
or
behalf?
towards the end of the year, film a teacher who does a great chemistry review or a great algebra review or just 1 hour blocks and let kids know, hey, during this 1 hour time, and it could have been somebody who filmed it 5 years ago. Algebra's algebra. If you have a teacher who filmed him, so we don't have to pay for the content. We have the instructor. I don't know what's so funny. We have instructors. We have the people, and we have great people who deliver great content every day. But it's only being delivered to 22 people at a time, but to record that great content and put it up on our TV so that people can see it in perpetuity, I think would be worthwhile to everybody.
Absolutely, and I think you're also going to start to hear a lot of multi-platform integration, so that it's not just a content that's going to be available for the education channel, but obviously content that can then be taken across all of our digital and social media platforms, and be able to, again, use other means to be able to convey the fact that this content is now available for view. So I think that's going to be really, really helpful to us as well. But I love Schoolhouse Rock personally, but obviously, working with PBS and Discovery and the History Channel and others to be able to really utilize their fabulous content that they have that, again, depending on what the content is and what the cost of it is, we'd love to be able to explore that. And I think Kim Stalker is going to be working with me, and I'm really looking forward to that too, to be able to, again, sort of bring back that whole concept of what Education Channel really means.
Shirley?
What I found is, when I turn on my TV and I go to there, I mean, it's in 2 hour blocks, and it says, it doesn't say anything what's coming up. You got to go somewhere else to see what's coming up. And if you want to record what's coming up, you got to record those 2 hours. I mean, if you wanted to watch something, you wanted to, say, a board meeting that starts at 3, that might extend to 4 or 5. I mean, you got to record from 2 to 4 and 4 to 6. I mean, or I guess you could just go to the website.
Right. Well, that's exactly right.
I mean, is there any way that we can do something about that, or is that just controlled by the
I think that's the way
stations?
that is controlled by the stations, but also over and above that, though, the whole concept of video on demand, most people don't watch TV the way that we all grew up watching TV. They're not going to necessarily be there on a Tuesday at 6:30 to tune into the board meetings. They're going to want to watch it on whatever device they want to, whenever they have time for it. And so, again, what we're looking to do this next year is take that step back and say, okay, how do we build out our website? How do we build out our YouTube channel in addition to the education channel to be able to, again, provide as much content and messaging to our audiences as possible?
I use your YouTube. That's where I go. And I have a whole list of them. They're all there for most of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
I just go back. It's so much easier than waiting for them to be on TV.
Exactly. The way that Lee County has been able to really grow their YouTube channel and really, again, from a content and streaming programming perspective is really, really impressive. So we're hoping to, again, be able to share best practices with our colleagues.
Any other questions? Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
And next up, we have curriculum and instruction staffing with Dr. Kingsley.
That was totally my error. I can't give you any good excuse, so I apologize for not getting you the work chart.
So are you Superwoman today?
Well,
Is that
never, not any day.
Is that a
Oh,
yeah, well, that's what I thought. Maybe it was a cape and you were going to start flying.
no,
Okay.
no. But it does have some color on it, Eric.
She color-coded. I like that.
Okay, so I just want to take you through this just a second and tell you a little bit about the background on why we made some changes. As Dr. Bowden mentioned, in April, we did an exercise for a 1% budget cut, And when the curriculum and instruction department, we all got together and looked at this, we asked the question, how can we provide cost savings to the district while maintaining or improving our academic standards? So the solution we came up with made sense, and although we didn't need to go forward, we feel the need to go forward. We saved the district $93,000 because of this change. So here's what we've done. If you look at the third page, you'll see it's all red. That's because in the second page, if you don't mind starting with Steve Cantise, we absorbed in totality the middle school support under secondary support now with Steve. So we looked at the cost of a middle school executive director and thought about the need for a leadership director. And when we were looking at this, we of course examined data. So I don't know if you realize, but elementary has 45% of our student enrollment. Middle schools have 20% of our student enrollment. High schools have 35%. And so when you think about supervision and support, elementary executive director has 23 schools and principals and staffs. Middle school and high school combined now have 14. So in an effort to be very cohesive, allow Steve to provide continuity, 6 through 12, lots of great articulation between middle schools and high schools, we decided to combine those, and that's reflected here in the org chart. The only little change is that Steve will continue to work with Pineview, but Sonia, who mostly works with Oak Park anyway, is going to assume support for Oak Park. So she's very willing to support and very happy to support this. If you look at the front page, the only changes that you see there are we moved Brian, Maria, and Jessica to elementary, where they logically should have been to begin with. They work with elementary schools. And then you see two additional specialist supports that are moved in from other departments. So you see an IT specialist. We felt the need to have someone working directly with elementary to help support instructional technology in the classroom. How does that look? And having somebody working with Chris and Kelly and the other team made a lot of sense. And then also ESOL, because ESOL support, as we have talked about at this table before, we feel the need to really reconsider how we're delivering ELL support to our children. So we're hoping that that helps by having great collaboration there with the other specialists. And then the secretary that was in secondary is moved, because if you flip back, you'll see in order to keep the middle school support intact, and that was important to the middle school principals, who are very happy working with Steve, but they were really anxious to know that Deanna would continue to work with them. She's a great first step for any kind of district support, and also with the specialists. So we did move Deanna under Steve, but Patty will continue working with high schools, Deanna will continue working with middle schools, and then they'll be logical about specific assignments. So you'll also see the leadership development person director position on the front page with Chris, and that position will really help us in so many ways, both Steve and Chris's department across the district. You may know that we contract with Wendy Katz, who's incredible. She's part-time, and it's $65,000 to contract her for the specific things that happen in curriculum and instruction under our purview, separate from what she is contracted with HR. That part-time position, although Wendy works all the time probably, if you've noticed any of her emails, you're getting them all hours of the night. But we felt the need to have somebody on staff that could work with us on some very important initiatives in leadership every day and could be part of our brainstorming team. So you may know the superintendent charged us to be thinking about going with a district accreditation, which is something that will eliminate high schools' need to do their own separate accreditation. And by doing a district one, actually many districts and probably most districts in Florida have that. So we're a little slower, which is not typically what happens in Sarasota. So we're anxious to get right up there and be district accredited, and this position will help lead that, although we'll all be very much involved in that. They will also, we're very excited about this. They'll be helping us work with an online platform that Harvard has created, a new platform. Their business school and their education department have combined for a new platform called HBX. And it is a incredible online learning where folks who participate will get a certificate in school management and leadership. And I'm particularly interested and excited about this. I've been working with them a little bit in their development, and they've asked that I beta test this program at the end of May. So it's an intensive 4 weeks. And from that, we'll get a guide that the Leadership Development Director and I can co-facilitate, because we had 45 interested staff, teachers, assistant principals, and principals who want to participate in that. It's a pretty elite thing, I think, for Sarasota, which is no surprise given our partnership with Harvard. So the Leadership Director position will help us do all things leadership and those specific things. We have posted it, and we're hoping to interview. And just for your information, Wilma Hamilton has asked to be part of that interview committee. I don't know if you remember, but she has a scholarship in her name at the Community Foundation of Sarasota County, and that is the Wilma Hamilton Leadership Fund. So we're excited to have her part of that interview team. So I know I went really fast, but if you have any questions.
I saw that. I like it. Now you start to do different shapes.
Function, we'll work on that.
I noticed that, I would imagine the red around it means you're getting rid of it.
It's either moved on the front page.
All right, right. Well, I'm looking on the front page in the voluntary pre-K program, they're moved to Fiddlers. After reading that article in the paper last week about how the pre-K programs are, do I want to say the word? Yeah, are failing some of our students. I know we used to do pre-K in-house, and I'm thinking maybe we ought to look at bringing pre-K back in, especially with our Title I schools. I don't know.
We have a pre-K program at Goshio.
The Hensons have funded for 3 years a pre-K class. Next year it'll be 2 pre-K classes at Goshio because it's been so successful.
Yeah, especially when we've got capacity at some of these schools, that maybe we take a look at bringing pre-K back into more of our schools, especially those that have the room for it. And I know that pre-K providers out in the real world, they charge extra for the whole day. I mean, I don't know how we could do that or whatever, but I would like to maybe have us look at pre-K, bringing it in-house, and maybe even lobbying the legislature. I mean, we're one of the lowest pre-K. We are now. We used to be one of the best funded pre-K programs in the country, and it's just gone down, down, down every year. I mean, I would think that maybe we might want to look at asking the legislature to fully fund pre-K and bringing it back in-house.
We looked at more money for Sarasota County this year, and it didn't work for pre-K. I mean, the coalition did, because a lot of the money is going to South County and to Dade County in particular, who say we need all the money there is. Caroline.
I think we need to make sure that we know what we're measuring. When we say that it's failing, we need to make sure that we're measuring the correct thing when the children enter our school system and how they are at the end of that first year. Because there's some discrepancy there about this is what my daughter does for a living. So I'm well aware of what's going on in the pre-K. She trains teachers throughout Florida. So there's just some things that we need to tighten up on.
Well, what's very clear is we cannot deliver high-quality VPK under the state allocation, and so it would be very difficult to ask our partners to do that. And so VPK programs are lacking but the core issue is their funding. Is if I were to start a VPK program, you would have to supplement it with general fund revenue, because what is allocated to our 4-year-olds is dramatically different than what's allocated to our 5-year-olds. And so I share your thoughts, is that what's coming out of the VPK program is a result of where the state has put it as a priority, which unfortunately is extremely low.
If you look at this year, how much it was cut this year, it's disgusting.
Well,
It's a great word.
I think we need to go back to a sort of like what we have. Here's the like a base student allocation. Here's the dollars per student, and these are how many students you have. And so you take that amount times the number of students, and I don't know what this funding formula they've got that doesn't make any sense. I mean, because to me, it's here's the number of students I have. Here's how much a program costs. And this is what you should fund it for.
That is
$2,400 for the most part per student, but what's happening in the state of Florida is that the large counties to the south of us are getting the majority of the money.
Yeah.
that's
Eric?
Who does Sonia report to?
Me.
You, but I didn't see that anywhere in this chart.
So
Did I miss that?
The org chart for me is just has not changed except for the middle school executive director position. So that I didn't bring forward.
And I'm very curious. I mean, I don't have a problem with the leadership development. My only concern is it seems to me that the person would report directly to you and not to the elementary. And I understand your concept of elementary has more schools than the high school, but it does seem that it's an overarching umbrella type position. So I'm just trying to fully understand the mechanics of why it isn't a direct report to you, given the fact that it is an umbrella type of job.
Well, we're pretty collaborative in all of our planning, and reporting to is a very collaborative effort. I mean, I rarely meet.
Do you understand my concern?
Yes, I rarely meet with executive directors alone. It's always a team. We meet weekly, sometimes twice weekly. And I will tell you that Chris will be evaluating that position, but that position, whoever takes that role, I'll be intimately involved with.
Because the concern is that because they're under Chris Renoff, that they would spend a disproportionate amount of their time in developing leaders in the elementary school, which is important, but that somehow the middle schoolers and high schoolers may end up being shortchanged for that. And I'm sure that's not the intent, but because they're not reporting directly to you, I'm sure you're going to make sure that doesn't occur. But it does appear from the outset that is a potential.
And so there's a sensitivity as to how many direct reports that our assistant superintendent has. We've not talked about also Natalie Roca's position and Rhonda Pillow. And so she has five direct reports. And so although she's involved even with the curriculum directors at elementary, middle, and high, their reporting relationships.
I mean, almost
Just-
weekly.
My organization to decide.
I almost meet weekly with Denise, too.
Sure.
I wasn't trying to imply that I get involved in the organizational structure of who reports to who. That wasn't my intention. That is clearly outside the well
noted. I appreciate.
I was simply giving you input.
The optics
of it.
Can I just say one thing about VPK too? I just want to clarify. So districts are required to do a summer offering of VPK, with VPK curriculum and assessments. And for the last 2 summers, when we have offered it, because our families are going to summer leadership, summer learning academies, they have not signed up for the offering that we're required to do by state. Parents recognize the quality difference of going to their child's school and having their child's teachers teach them as opposed to going through VPK. So I just wanted to clarify that. And we have ESE pre-K already in the district for children who qualify from age 3 up. So,
Caroline, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question, but it was in response to what you said. And that's, I see the direct reports that you have, and there is a ratio, and you are beyond the ratio, because I know what you're doing besides the ones that are direct report to you. Almost everybody there reports to you on that line.
thankfully, they're incredible, incredible educators.
But if we overload you, you will not be able to be effective.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome.
I'll keep my cape on.
Remember that. Remember that. Any other questions? I think we're going to break for lunch and be back at 12:30. This meeting is adjourned for the moment until 12:30.
We're going to have an easy afternoon then.
Now we have to leave this here.